to Side Spot. Another great day. I was a little behind this morning, so I actually left my cup of coffee downstairs. I don't want to take and excuse myself and run all the way downstairs 3 flights to go get my cup of coffee. And I was like halfway through that cup. You know, when you get like halfway through a cup or near the bottom, it seems like the flavor enhances because all the sediments in, you know, your cream and your sugar, if you sweeten it, fall to the bottom. If you don't stir it up real well, it's always at the bottom. But like anything else that you stir up and that within begins to sink to the bottom, it actually is the foundation of the flavor. So I won't have my coffee sitting here at my side this morning, but that's okay. I have it inside of me, and that's what's most important, that I got my morning Joe. So last week we had pretty much wrapped up this show with beginning to look at some questions that we need to ask ourselves about why we find ourselves in particular relationships, particular situations that are not fully what it is that we desire to have, yet in the same breath we're bashing the other person for not providing for us that which we think that they should be giving us in that relationship. We talked about looking at the physical attributes, the physical assets of what that other person has, and challenging ourselves as to why those things attract us. Why those things attract us. Even going as far to say that you will see an individual at a playground with their child, laughing and joking and having all kind of fun in that environment, and assuming that this person is a good parent because of that which we see. And just because I see you with your child in this particular venue, and in my own mind saying, well, you know, I want to see that's what I want to see of the father of my child or the mother of my child doing. I want to see that person doing those kind of things because that's important. But there's another side that we don't see, and it's the side that we don't see. For some reason, we leave we blindside ourselves because those things that are not in front of us are the things that we really need to be asking about. But it's always that, it seems to be always, that which is in front of us is what we go on. And we go on that for a variety of reasons. We go on that which we see before us because that's what attracts us. If I was sitting here in this chair, not saying anything, what would be the attraction? Really? What would be the attraction? Is it the sweater I have on? Can you see the fibers of the sweater? Can you see the make of this sweater and come to a determination that this is a quality sweater? What is quality? Did I get this sweater from Kmart? Did I get this sweater from JCPenney? Did it come from the Men's Warehouse? Did it come from Joseph A. Banks? Do you know where this sweater came from? Some people will be able to sit there and say, yes, I can look at your sweater and I can tell by the stitching that it's a good quality sweater or that it's a poor quality sweater. So what is the significance of that? What does that say about the person who can make such an assessment about one's garments? What does it say about that person? Does it say that they have a preoccupation with fine goods? Does it say that they have a good eye for quality clothing because they themselves like quality clothing? Or is it just that they see it as being a nice garment? Because maybe stitching in certain areas is important in a garment. We know, for those of you who know anything about clothes, we know that when you get clothing that has single stitching, that the likelihood of that material separating at some point in time is quite high. That you really want to seek to have double stitching in the seams of your clothing, because you want the seam to be a strong seam. You want it to be something that holds its weight. So there are some things we do know. There are some things that we have to know when we're shopping for our own goods. I learned that from someone who had spent some time living in China, and how they could go up to a vendor who was making garments right there, who would make a pair of pants or something, but it was only a single stitch. That means you'd have to wind up bringing it back, or taking it to a tailor who would put an additional stitching in it, but you were getting the garments dirt cheap. Dirt cheap. So that's how I learned that. I learned to select clothing not just based in price, but based in durability. So there's a lot of assessments and a lot of assumptions that can be made about the person sitting in front of you. But again, if I didn't open my mouth and you were a person who seeks to be materialistically satisfied, then you would be maybe satisfied with the sweater itself and the slacks. I don't know if you can see the slacks from the position of the camera, but speaking of position of the camera, I kind of positioned the camera last show, and it tilted down on me. I didn't know that it had, so it kind of looked like I was ducking under the lens in order for you to see. But listen, I hope you got the message. But we have to ask ourselves these questions when we are finding ourselves in situations that seem like a deja vu moment of, I've been here before. I felt this feeling before, and I didn't like the feeling then, and I'm feeling that feeling again, but is it them or is it me? And how many times do you even ask yourself, is it you? How many times do you ask yourself that one simple question, is it me or is it them? Because the first response, it's them. Most of us give the first response to a situation that is seemingly out of control, out of our hands. We automatically say it's the other person, because that's easy. Because it can't possibly be me, because I think I have it all together. You know, I think I am the package deal. I'm the flawless package. Forgetting that we haven't moved through life unscathed of these social ills, whether we are directly involved in being the deliverer of such ills, or whether we are the recipient. Regardless of what end we're on, we are impacted by it. And it impacts our interactions with others. It impacts our interactions with others. Don't think for a minute that myself have been unscathed of the very things that I talk to you about in these shows. This is wisdom. And wisdom comes over a period of time, but only over a period of time of seeking to learn about oneself. Only through a period of time, through maturity, when you begin to realize that, well, wait a minute, there's something happening here, and the happening is me. What's happening in this world is me. I'm in this world. What is my contribution to this world? What is my purpose in this world? And when you get to the point in your life when you begin to look through that lens and see yourself as a part of what's happening, then you start asking yourself some questions. When you begin to experience some things that are dissatisfying to your life, then it's time to start asking yourself some things. And I got to the point in April 17th, 1994, when I started questioning myself. Prior to that, I was asking myself what was going on in the rest of the world and looking at what the world was doing to me. But at that point in 1994, I really began to ask myself, what are you doing? What are you going to do with your life? So I've been asking myself that question every day. And not because I haven't come to a conclusion already about what it is that I want to do with my life and what it is that I need to do with my life. I ask myself that every day because I need to remind myself that today, if you have been blessed to wake up, you need to be out there helping somebody. You need to be out there making a contribution to this world you live in. You need to be doing something, constructive, something productive. You need to be becoming that which you profess to be. That which you profess to be. So that means I also need to be seeking to have in my life those things that are beneficial to my continued growth. And that's not to say that I won't put something in me that is not beneficial. And I'm not talking about drugs or alcohol. I'm not talking about putting those kind of things in me. I'm talking about feeding myself a thought. Allowing negative energy to come into me. Putting myself in a compromising situation where, it can interrupt my spirit. Those kinds of things. And that includes people. Most importantly, people. And I'm not talking about judging others. I'm talking about making a judgment about others and what they can bring to you to either interrupt your spirit or contribute to your spirit. But also understanding that we all need somebody to contribute to our spiritual upliftedness as well. So it's going to be some days where I'm going to have to give something to somebody else to help alter the negative direction they may be going in for that moment, or maybe overall in life. But if I can interrupt that moment, if I can give somebody a fleeting glimpse of sanity to see that where you're going right now with this circumstance is going to be a detriment to you, not just now and maybe further down the line. If I can just interrupt that for one brief moment, that's my responsibility. So when I find myself being at odds with a person who I have become intimate with, and when I say become intimate with, I mean that we have developed a level of closeness. I'm not even talking about sexually, but when we have become intimate, means that we begin to share our innermost thoughts and feelings about some things to one another. I have to ask myself, where is that person going with this information, where they're going with the information that they're giving me, and why? Because there's an attraction there. I feel like, I should be giving you this information because I think it may help you. And I think with me helping myself, part of helping myself is helping others, and an understanding that if I have an agenda behind why I'm giving that to a person, then I need to ask myself, what is my agenda? And sometimes we do it to forge relationships because that's part of relationship development. But we need to come to understand that. In regards to a person that I have, it's now my significant other. I now need to look at why I'm in that relationship. What it is about that relationship that I have found to be healthy for me. To be healthy for me. Not befitting to some idea that I have, but something that connects with my spirit has to be present in this relationship. It has to be. I posted a quote on Facebook the other day that said it's different. There's a difference between wanting a husband and wanting to be a wife. As such, there's a difference between wanting a wife and wanting to be a husband. They're two different statements. Each of them represents two different statements. They represent two different spectrums of life. So when I say that I want to be a husband to someone, that means that I am working on developing characteristics of husbandry. That means that I am working on understanding that I have a very significant role in the life of the person who I choose to be my wife. That means that I have to see myself as that person's rock. I have to see myself as that person's protector. I have to see myself in a light that is very specific to the life of another. And that means that when the wife begins to see herself as wanting to be a wife, she too has to see herself in that light as a contributor. When I want to have a wife, I'm looking at possession. I'm looking at ownership. I'm looking at something to have on my hip. I'm looking at life through a different lens. I'm looking at because the religion says that we should marry. So I need to have a wife in order to be able to be adherent to the guidelines of the religion. You know, there's a variety of reasons. And when you look at it from that perspective, then you're only looking to do it to appease something that doesn't exist within your true growth and development. And it takes time to fully understand this, which is why it's so important that when we talk about human development, especially when we're talking to our young men, our boys, let me start with the boys, that we teach them how to be a boy first. We need to stop trying to teach a boy how to be a man when he is in fact a boy, because boys have relationships, have responsibilities. They have relationships too, but we haven't gotten there yet. But a boy needs to understand that part of the foundation that is important before entering into manhood holds some other obligations, because then you learn to be a man after being a boy. Then you move into manhood because you have a foundation. Then once you move into manhood, then you start being developed, shaped, and formed to be a husband. So once you have that foundation and you move into seeking a wife, you have already desired to be a husband. Therefore, when you become a husband, the foundation has already been developed and built for you now to becoming a father. Very few of us went through that course of action. Very few of us as men. have gone through that course of action, have gone through that regimen of condition, have gone through such regimen of rituals and moving into those phases. It used to be that way when we had the village concept. There were certain things that you had to do, you know, which were rites of passage coming into that, but that doesn't happen anymore. And a lot of that's not even happening with our young ladies either. But I can only speak to specifically young men. Even having young ladies, I have 3 young ladies. Still, I'm viewing it from the perspective of, as a male, I can only give to a female my perspective on being a good person. You know, on what I see as being a good woman, as what I see as being a good wife. The best teacher for all of that is their mothers. Should be the best teachers for that are their mothers. It's like, I don't agree that a woman can teach a man how to be a man. I don't believe that a man can teach a girl how to be a woman. Because there's some things that, and I'm talking about on both sides, that you can't understand, that you can't give because you don't have it. What you have and what you try to give is based on this. If you've not been a boy, you really don't know what it feels like to be a boy. You don't know what it means, you know, to be subjected to some of the things in society and coming into manhood, and you don't understand those things. You can only understand through your own intellect, through your own lens, which has its own biases, and then and you're giving those biases to that child. So if you've not been, you can't give that. You follow what I'm saying? So it's important that I understand me. And it's important that I understand the conditioning of the other person. So to ask about family is very important when you want to talk to somebody about a relationship. Tell me about your family life. Tell me about the relationship with you and your parents. Tell me about the relationship with you and your siblings. You know, because you want to know historically about the person's relationship with family, because that's going to be able to also satisfy that within you. If you are a family-driven person, a family-oriented person, and this other person is not, if this other person has a bad taste in their mouth about family, that's going to be some clashing. Because you're going to try to get them to participate in things that they're not used to and may not want to, and even if they do, because they have not been exposed to it, it may be difficult for them, and you know, you may have some struggles in that dynamic with the family. I've been lone wolf, you know, pretty much most of my life, but I enjoy family. I enjoy family. I enjoy people to some degree. So I'm always going to be, you know, cordial. But I love the concept of family. And even though I love the concept of family, still my family is not as close. We're all over the place, and we're not as close in terms of gathering, but we stay in touch. So you have to look at those kind of things. But more importantly, you have to look at your own background. You have to look at your own foundation. And you have to look at that you're attracted to certain people. You're attracted to certain personalities for a reason. And before you go running into going into this relationship with this new person, you really want to check yourself. You really want to check yourself, because the times of blaming others for your condition, that's over. That's over. Or it should be over. Not unless you're comfortable with being in the victim role. And there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people who are comfortable being in the victim role, continuing to blame others so they don't prosper, they don't move forward, they don't grow, they don't mature, they don't develop in their own lives, and it's always attributed to somebody else. It's like blaming the system for why we as a people have not achieved. That's the bottom line. And that's a whole nother show that we can discuss that on. And speaking of show, we can discuss that on. I'm going to try to get this out before the end of this show ends. I'm looking to start a weekly television show, online television show. I'm not really sure if I'm going to take and expand SciSpot and further develop it into the type of talk show that I'm looking to do. I'm not really sure, but I know that it would be probably an 8 to 10 week, season, show per season, special guests, regular attending participants in the show, seated to talk about a variety of issues, solutions, things that I want to talk about, things that we don't typically hear on a regular basis in the news, and not make it too much a news focused show, but a show that focuses on prospering, productivity, human development and growth, helping people to see the other side, the brighter side of life. Because watching the news is so depressing. You hear the same thing: kill, 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 die, 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 die. And even though it's hard to avoid some of the dialogue about living and death, because that is what life is about. From the point of conception, the process of death begins. The egg, think about it, the egg and the sperm cell get together. The process of growth happens. What happens as we grow? We age. What happens after we get to a certain point in life is in terms of the aging process? Eventually we die. So life and death happens interchangeably, and we have to look at that. So I'm putting the format together now. I've identified some persons who I'm going to approach about being involved in this project. If you're a person who's on Facebook and Twitter, you're doing it anyway. You're just doing it verbally. You're just voicing your opinion in spurts. I want to create an opportunity for those voices to be put together with a face, to be put together with the character of the person, and being able to kind of bring that person's voice forward in a more, I don't want to say controlled environment, but an environment that has a similar foundation, where it's individuals who are being a voice for others who have a similar lens. How about if I put it that way? That's the concept here. These voices represent the voices of others as well. And that's my intent behind the show. But by next week, you'll have that information on the show. Excuse me, something in my no coffee, dry throat. So that's on my agenda. So again, I want to remind you to look at yourself. At the end of every day, look at yourself and ask yourself, what is it that attracts you to the kind of people you continuously are attracted to?
60 seconds.
Are these people healthy for you? And if not, what are you going to do about becoming healthy yourself? You might wake up tomorrow and say, this other person in my life has to go. And you start letting some people go. Because holding on to some old stuff, some old baggage, it's not going to make you healthy. It's going to hold you back. It's going to hold you back. For so many years of my life, I felt held back. I don't feel held back anymore. And that's what you have to begin to look at. That person has to be making a contribution to your continued growth and development. They don't make you. We don't make one another. We accentuate one another. And that's what we should be doing.
10 seconds.
To focus on somebody's flaws is not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about how you feel at the end of the day being with that person. Thank you so much for joining me at SciSpot. As always, be safe, peace, God bless.